All righty, you guys, I'm gonna get this rolling, even though Angela's getting settled in. Dana ran outside. Joyce is gonna join us just for a few minutes today. But yeah, it looks like there's a good chunk of you on Zoom, but we're in the house. So I would like to go ahead and call this November 2nd meeting of the Ridgway Sustainability Advisory Board in session. It's 5:02. We're doing great. How's everybody doing out there? Thumbs up. Everybody else is on mute right now. Why don't I see everybody there? Let's come on, Dana. Do we need to?
You need to take notes. Does that need minutes this time?
I don't remember.
Third in rotation.
You decide that.
I can't remember.
Because it went you, then Dana, then.
I'll do it.
Okay. You kind of wrapped up last meeting too, didn't you?
Not any notes.
Very
No.
nice.
What?
I'll do minutes today.
You will?
All
You
right.
don't have to.
Preston, do we need to do a call to order
Last time.
and attendance roll call?
We do, but I think you
Online?
could just go ahead and note
I mean,
everyone in
whenever you've done it.
attendance.
You can have that for your plate.
Either in person or virtually. I think you can say everyone's here.
I mean, as long as
Alrighty.
you guys approve, I did the rest.
Almost everybody
Everybody is.
Everybody is here except for, I haven't seen, let me go back to, is Joyce on there yet?
Yep, she's right there.
She is there. All righty, so everybody's here, you guys, rather than doing the roll call, but everybody could be here both in the analog and virtual. Terry's on here as well, and I wanna, and everybody knows who Terry is at this point, and he was on last time. So I'm gonna let him jump in, and he's gonna give everybody a primer on his objective with a community solar garden. Also, in this case, it's doing the multifunctional role of being an agrivoltaic solar garden. And I think I've shared with some folks, the primary example here in the state is Jack's Solar Garden over on the Front Range, which utilizes elevated solar panels for electricity generation. But at the same time, it also provides shade and soil and cover crop shade for people to work underneath. The one at Jack's Garden is rather large. Give a primer on one that could potentially happen here in Ridgway and some other ones that are some other site locations that are also being considered. With that, Terry, you ready to take it away?
Yeah, I have to, pardon me, I've got Kim Wheels Husky here with my Malamute and they like to talk, so I'll try to keep them quiet.
You look like you're being attacked right now.
Yeah, I was.
Kind of a Blair Witch project.
Kim is overdoing her her energy assessment work at the space to create. So I'm dog sitting. Okay, guys, go play in the highway. Go play in the highway. Come on.
Terry, if you need another second to navigate that and get them out of there.
Yeah, let me see what I can do here. Give me a second. Let me see if I can hold on a second. You guys.
You do that, Terry. I'm going to tell these guys a little bit more about the agrivoltaic component of it. It's a very elegant way to bring together, especially in the larger scale farming community, and some projects are being explored here on the Western Slope already. Opportunity for people to grow all sorts of crops or to put in pollinating crops, grasses, native species. It mitigates evapotranspiration, and easiest way to say this, it's a win-win, beautiful combination of ways to provide energy on site and for distribution around an area. In our case, Terry's going to pose the possibility of doing that right here on a location that's owned by the town of Ridgway, out by the community garden and the community apiary already. So, Terry, now that you've navigated through Terry,
I've separated the hounds. We'll see if that works.
Okay. 'Could you advance the next slide?
Could you advance the next slide? Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. 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 So with that primer, in my day job with San Miguel Power, I'm tasked to look for new community solar, whether it be a solar garden, and that has a specific definition to it, or just sites where San Miguel Power can generate more local renewables. As you may know, that we have a 5% carve out in our all requirements contract with Tri-State to develop local renewables. And we have headroom in that 5% to add about 2 megawatts of additional solar. So I've been, over the course of the last couple of years, looking for available parcels that we could obtain at low to no cost from municipalities to begin with, as well as from private members, to see about adding more solar capacity. A community solar garden's definition is a little technical, but you may be familiar with the community solar garden we have out in the Paradox Valley. It's a 1 megawatt array where our members can purchase shares in that garden, and then they get the equivalent output of their share of the garden credited on their monthly bills. So that's sort of the background. I have been talking to Preston and John and others, as well as county commissioners from San Miguel County, Uray County, even in Montrose, looking for available land space. Excuse me. And anyway, I'd like to explore the possibility of putting one here in Ridgway. So let me kind of walk through this. So this would be something out of the box for San Miguel Power, is that we haven't put one in that's exclusive to any particular group of our members. Most of our community solar gardens, the 3, are available for participation by any member in the utility, all the way up from the Utah border to Silverton. This is one that I'm looking at possibly making exclusive to the town of Ridgway in exchange for using a piece of Ridgway owned property. So this initially could provide, as you may all know or recall, that the town of Ridgway has participated in our Totally Green program, which for a penny a kilowatt hour and signing up as an automatic bill calc, we source the renewable energy credits from our local renewable energy generators, supplemented by credits that we purchase on the open market, equivalent on a 1-to-1 basis for the kilowatt hours that the town uses for the powering the municipal facilities. So it's a penny a kilowatt hour. I can't remember what the total is per year, but it's some reasonable amount of dollars, a few $1,000s, whereby the town of Ridgway can claim that 100% of their electricity is sourced from local renewables. So this would be a project that would enable that as well. So the pool for those renewable energy credits right now comes from Uray Hydro and Pandora Hydro and Bridal Veil and Paradox Solar and all the various renewable generators we have. The credits, the 1-to-1 kilowatt hour credits, goes into a pool. That pool is what we draw from to retire those credits on behalf of the town. So this would be another renewable energy generator in that pool, and possibly be exclusive for other purposes to be used by the town. So the other purpose that I have in mind is consistent with what the Zebra Committee has been doing research on, which is this concept of eventually requiring all new construction in the town of Ridgway to be net zero. Well, that's typically accomplished by, 1, going all electric first, so that all your energy consumption is electric energy consumption. And then 2, either siting a solar system on the roof of that new construction and or participating in a program like this. The possible upside of putting an array in Ridgway is now the Ridgway could potentially have exclusive access to this particular solar garden for that purpose. So homeowner Mr. Smith puts in a home. He's not able to site solar panels on his roof because of shade or misorientation. Instead of having to do that, he might be able to participate in acquiring the required amount of energy offset from a locally sited community solar garden. The location that we're looking at is what is referred to in the master plan as the Green Street Park. There is a 10-year budget line item for developing this park. It's about $2 million. That's probably way out there. The town currently doesn't have any specific plans on how to develop that. The image in the lower left corner is sort of the conceptual diagram for that park. You can see in the north, or the upper portion, is where the community gardens are and the community apiary. So this would effectively be to the south of the community apiary all the way down to the end of Railroad Street. So this would be a community solar garden consistent with the community garden and the community apiary. As JT had mentioned, another possible application or a secondary opportunity for this would be a community agrivoltaic garden, meaning that the solar array itself could enable dual use such that you can, I'll get into this here in a little bit more, and JT touched on it, we could find other uses for the land underneath of the solar array. So this is in general thinking outside the box, walking the talk, consistent with a number of items in our town master plan. Next slide. So what enables a community solar garden or a community array or a solar array? First, you need good southern exposure, which this parcel has. You need flat or cleared land to avoid any costly civil works in developing the solar array. Third is proximity to a three-phase electric line. In the case of this location, I'll show you on the next slide, there's a three-phase line right in the middle of where the array would go, so the costs are minimal to none. Low to no cost land lease. This is available for the lifetime of the system. The system typically lasts 25 to 30 years. The land lease would have to be afforded by the town, made available to SMPA for developing the system, after which there's likely a requirement that the land be reclaimed to its original use or original state, and or the solar garden or the solar array can be updated, with new panels and be perpetuated, and the leases could be extended. Requires local community acceptance. There's typically a visual impact issue. In the case of using this particular parcel, there'd be the loss of that space for the use for a community park, and then participation by the members of the town in the use of the solar and the use that I mentioned before, which could potentially be as a fill in the gap for those who can't cite their own local renewable generation to comply with what might be the net zero requirement that we collectively enact, or that this committee helps advise the town to enact. There was some idea that the irrigation ditch to the west of this could be used as a water source, although that needs to be further explored. It may not be conducive water for purposes of growing, maybe too alkaline. Next slide. Sorry to push through this, but I'm going to keep this short for you guys. So this is just a quick image is broken in two of the north side of the available space in the Green Street Park. And then the south side, there's approximately 2 acres available. And you can see that little green box is where there's a pump house there, which has the 3-phase line connection. And you can also see in yellow on the diagram on the right where that water ditch is. Whether that's useful or not for this purpose, I'm not sure. Next slide, please. So I had an initial design done for this, and you can see on the left, this is kind of a conceptual or a quick aerial view of what the solar array might look like to the west of what is currently part of, I always forget the name of that development. It's not River Park, it's River, what is it, Preston? What is it? Parkside, okay, Parkside. Well, this would be to the side of Parkside. So that land space, without using trackers, would enable a 784 kilowatt solar system with an annual output of about 1.2 gigawatt hours, which is 1,200 megawatt hours. Up in the upper right-hand box, you can see I did a quick analysis at SMPA that the town currently uses, the town's municipal facilities currently use about half of the output of that array. So if we were to build this array, half that array would effectively power all of the town's electric use. And that we could use the mechanism of the Totally Green program that I mentioned before as a way of managing the finances on this. Basically, the town's paying a penny a kilowatt hour for that 540,000 kilowatt hours. We would just be using this locally sited array to satisfy the requirements for that. That leaves the other half of it available possibly as fodder for the net zero requirement for new construction. One possible way that the town could tie up this capacity in a exclusive way is they pay a penny a kilowatt hour for the remaining capacity until such time as individual new construction residents or even current residents sign up for Totally Green, in which case the amount of energy that they would require would be subtracted from what the town pays as that additional premium. These are just ideas right now, haven't been fully vetted, haven't been formalized into a proposal, just fodder for thought on how this might be, how the town might achieve exclusivity to the output of this array. And then of course the bar graph just shows the production of the solar array over the course of the year. And then next slide, and probably last, I think, in this is the idea that there's this dual use possibility where, we, the town, could power and feed the community, possibly with the use of that land. That land currently is arid, it's alkaline, it's not being used. It would require some modification. So there's a number of different ways that you could convert the use of that land, basically taking advantage of the shade in this case, and modifying the soil as necessary to achieve what's considered agrivoltaics. And the next slide shows a number of possibilities. In the upper right hand, the box there, you could simply just plant wildflowers in there as fodder for the pollinators, the apiary. You could grow shade grass in there and twice or three times a year allow sheep in there to graze. You could raise the height of the array such that you could literally farm underneath of it. And there's multiple other possible uses of that land that help enable it to be defined as an agrivoltaic use. And there's I can shut up and you guys can read these boxes, but this is some of the description of the origin of these. These started in Japan, where they would basically grow rice underneath of the solar arrays. And it helps mitigate the problem of underneath a typical solar array, the land becomes useless and actually degrades. So this is a way of maintaining the value of the land, the soil itself, and provides, like I said, pollinators, birds, wildlife. There's so many other possible uses, but the roll up here is that an agrivoltaic community solar garden would provide our community multiple benefits and position Ridgway as a national leader in this field. There's only 4 such agrivoltaic gardens, solar gardens in the entire United States. So we would, depending upon the timing, be one of the early adopters of this concept. So that's what I had to throw out there for consideration for this group to consider as part of, in particular, the idea that this might be great opportunity to help satisfy what might be the requirement for net zero, and how do you manifest that? How does the town enable the residents to satisfy that requirement if we were to either through code or ordinance require that all new construction be net zero? So I have a couple other slides on another little project that I'll show you real quick. But before I do that, any questions currently?
Angela has a
Yeah.
question right now, but
Yeah, I have a few questions. I think it's an awesome idea. My guess is, but all of us are familiar with agrivoltaics. And I think would be amazing in that space. It does seem like the height of all these voltaic PV arrays are all short. So everywhere you see these, they're all short. So it doesn't allow much underneath. So it seems like it could be a multi-year project if it was higher and you had all kinds of options. I guess soil integrity there is something that I wonder if you have any idea if the structure of the soil would be good for that. Our fence at the apiary is standing strong, but soil's kind of, as you know, alkaline. The other thing was who would pay for it and what would be our role in this committee to move the project forward?
So let me address a couple of those. So prior to this meeting, JT and I met with all of his experience in agriculture, and he can speak to this much better than I can. If we divided the word agrivoltaic in two, and I would, through SMPA, be focused on the voltaic side, which is the electricity production. And this committee and or JT forming a separate committee or in concert with the community garden folks would begin to look at the issues that you raised about the integrity of the soil, the use, the what would the agrivoltaic side of it look like. One of the other things I failed to mention is that the array itself by code would require a fence around it to prevent people from strolling in that are not allowed to. One of the requirements for the special use permit for the last community solar garden we did up by the Telluride Airport, called the Last Dollar Community Solar, the county required that we put a vegetation buffer between the visibility of the town and the array. So possibly along that eastern edge of this, facing the community, there could be a row of vegetation like fruit trees. So outside of the fence, there could also be a row of productive vegetation, or possibly just evergreens or something. So there's another possible use of that soil. I have no experience or expertise to answer whether the soil could be modified or conditioned to grow real crops, whether simply we could plant wildflowers like in that picture on the left there, or shade grass for sheep. There's so many things that need to be explored here. The cost and the management of the part of the agrivoltaics is not something San Miguel Power wants to have any part of. We don't have the bandwidth or the expertise. So we would rely on the community to figure out what that looks like, how it's managed. It could be that it's, if it produced revenue producing produce, that it pays for itself. It could be that the produce is exclusively made available to the town. It could be that it's given to the food bank. It could be that it's just a source of pollinators for the apiary. This is just really early stage concept. So we haven't vetted any of these things. And I'll let JT speak more to some of that. And maybe he can answer some of the questions that I couldn't.
Well, who's paying for it?
So.
TBD. The solar portion of it would be paid for by the participants, just the electricity portion of it. San Miguel Power would develop the solar array, irrespective or outside of the development of the agri portion of it. So I don't have an answer to that question on the agri side of the agrivoltaics, but the solar portion of it would be paid for as part of the cost of developing the electricity component of it. So the town would not pay for it.
I'll talk to the financial implications to the town. And there's a number of approaches that could be taken, but on a basic level, the town could lease the area of land to SMPA for little to no cost, just depending, right? And the town's out of it, right?
Yeah.
Of course, in any sort of lease agreement we draft, there could be specific provisions. Of course, it can only be used for, in this case, development of agrivoltaic, community solar array, et cetera, some subleasing provisions so that, as Terry was saying, SMPA doesn't really want to have to delve into all that and administer the agri piece. That's right. But anyway, I hope that makes it clear. The financial implications would be level none, but certainly would want a seat at the table. Engagement piece beyond just leasing.
No.
Yeah, it seems like we should ask them for electricity as to pay, an annual kilowatt hours that the town would get. Pay us in free electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So
I like the idea a lot. I'm a little concerned about losing town park space since we have limited space. I like raising panels, but is that that's problematic because if we put a fence around it and only certain people can get around, because if you raise the panels enough, I mean, you could have a park
A shade park.
yeah, exactly. You could also take the current apiary and move it, further south and use that as an outdoor park for kids. So you actually still have some outdoor uncovered park space and move the apiary down. I don't know how much they would complain about,
That would be a project.
Well, Fred would not be happy with
Neither
it,
would I.
but But I keep my bees under shade, I keep a board of.
Oh, you mean have the bees under the solar panels?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
No,
could. I was going to have put in a call to Fred to discuss, right now, the way we lay that out, if you go back a slide, does not include covering the apiary, but it's possible that we could extend, actually one more slide, I think. You could extend the array to cover the apiary or not. So right now it's sort of would be south of the apiary. I mean, the picture doesn't do it justice because the apiary isn't shown in the diagram. But that's one of the, I had a meeting today with the project developers, the solar developers, and they want me to get actual dimensions of where the apiary is, and we would exclude it from the design. But it's possible that we put the array over the apiary. It's to be determined. This is very, very early stage. This is just a conceptual idea at the moment. So a lot of these details are great questions, and they would all have to be vetted to figure out what makes the most sense. To the question of the use of the park, part of the impetus behind exploring this further, and this was, by the way, presented to the town council at our budget retreat on Saturday and was given a thumbs up for further exploration. And part of the justification for that was that the Green Street Park is also conceptual. It doesn't actually have an active budget to develop it. And as Preston has pointed out, per capita, we have more park space than most communities already. So that there may not be a need for another park. My experience living in this community, I live in River Park, is that it's nicknamed Stroller Park and also Tupperware Heights, which I like, in that the community already uses all the sidewalks in the community for strolling about. So I'm not sure, an argument could potentially be made that there's not a need for another park, especially if it's just a landscape series of sidewalks, since we effectively had that throughout the community already.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in because I've had my hand up for a while. I've got a couple questions. If you did the full array, you said half would be going to the town. Just roughly, I'm going to ask all my questions at once. How many roughly residences would the rest of the array power? I was going to ask about a fence too, since we had to do that for the apiary, and curious if that's budgeted into the $2 million. Yeah, and I kind of have the same idea as Dave too, is maybe making them really high for a park. And the one last thing, I'm requesting to not just solely communicate with Fred about the apiary. We have a steering committee, and I would request that you go through all of us to confer about big stuff, like if we're going to have solar array over the apiary.
Sure.
Thanks.
Well, I'm going to vet the idea with Fred as to whether that would pose a problem for an apiary, not trying to get his approval for it. Just, is that an issue or not? I don't know.
I can tell he has a bias on that, Terry. So
He
I
does.
can tell you that he has a bias. You might do research, or like Vicky says, talk to a bigger group.
Right. What? And do you know what his bias might be? I don't have a clue.
Yeah, he would be.
He says they don't like shade. I can agree with that.
Okay.
That Dave said that. Yeah, I think it should be more than one person's input.
Sure. Well, that's why we're a committee here. As they say, a camel is a horse designed by a committee.
Oh, that's a
To answer,
perfect quote.
Dana, you have a question?
Well,
to
so
answer your-
go ahead and get.
Vicky, hold on, just to make sure. Vicky, did you get all your questions in?
I did, thanks.
All right.
minus one.
Kenny, too.
Ken's got one.
Let's all keep in mind too, that this is, Terry's giving you the basic primer on this, on the conceptual side of it right now, in terms of the whole systems design of all of this. Especially if we separate out the voltaic side, and he knows the numbers on that. I'm doing the homework on what the added costs are, what it would cost to even consider this, and whether the site's even the right spot. So before we get too far into the weeds, easily punned, let's keep our questions to that.
One quick answer to a question that I didn't answer, and I did a quick calculation because I hadn't done it before. If the town were to consume half of the output of the array to power their own municipal facility loads, the remaining half would power 35 to 50 homes, 35 to 50 new construction homes based on the average electric consumption. So it's not huge. This isn't a big, this is less than a megawatt. A megawatt takes 5 acres. This is 2 acres. So it could be that we could squeeze more energy out of it if we put trackers in there. All this is TBD. But these are all great questions. I mean, these are the kinds of questions that I'm looking to hear from you guys.
I get one quick consideration is like, why
Angela,
not partner with a rancher that has cows that could graze underneath of it and not use town land? Is a possibility.
That's possible. That requires it be the structure be quite fortified and raised because cows like to scratch on things. So typically, I've never seen cows graze under the solar array. I've seen sheep. We do that in Telluride, so that they open the fence twice a year to let sheep in there to basically chew out the weeds. But cows are a different beast, as you know.
Right.
And Terry, you told me about what the county requires, provided if you were to find a rancher or a large parcel out in the county, there's some logistics and permitting that SMPA would need to go through.
That's right. So if this were not located on a town property, I'd have to go through a special use permit with multiple hearings that opens it up to a much larger audience of potential naysayers or those who would object to it for a multitude of reasons. Ridgway has a demographic that might be more conducive to having this. So there's a number of interesting reasons to pursue this in the town that would simplify it. I am looking at another parcel. Actually, I'm exploring 9 parcels in total right now, some of which are on private land that don't have visual impact issues. They're tucked away, and some of which would be county operated land. There's the county has offered to have me explore the use of the quarry up there by the rat trails up at the top there, as well as the space where not the landfill, the trash transfer station is. Those are pretty small. They don't offer as much land opportunity as this space. So again, this is just I got a thumbs up from the town council to do what I'm doing right now, which is to start exploring this further.
can I butt in now?
Let's get Ken on there. He's had his hand for a while.
All right, I heard that, and I'm sure Terry wasn't saying this was set in stone, but there's the surplus electricity produced by the solar arrays could help offset a net zero lack in a development. And I do not think we should let developers off the hook on something like that. I think any surplus should be used to offset single family homeowners if they can't meet the requirement for net zero. But developers have no excuse in my book. They've got money and they have the wherewithal to do that. The other thing I would like to know, and I don't know that Terry has an answer for this, is what would be the upcharge for doing agrivoltaic as opposed to just voltaic? We have no idea, I would assume.
JT and I talked about this, and that was one of the questions I posed to him, is that depending upon the nature of what would be grown underneath, it might dictate design changes. For example, if we were going to do active vegetation for crops, it would require that the array be lifted up. That adds expense to the electric side. So those are considerations that would have to play into the development cost of the solar side of it, based upon what the land use is targeted for. If it was just wildflowers for the apiary, no change in cost. If we're having to raise it up 6 feet higher, that's a lot more steel.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And Kenny, to answer that question in terms of figuring that out, those queries have been posed to the places like Jack Solar Garden and the other experimental projects that are being considered here in Colorado, including one up in Paonia, one with the Valley Food Partnership up in Montrose County as well. But those are all in the conceptual phase as well. So the ones that have been built, those numbers have been asked for. And then of course we have to ask places like Recla Meadow, how much would it cost in today's premiums?
Metal's gone down.
But it's a good. Yep.
Are you all set?
Can I quickly just touch on the next couple of slides, Preston, and I'll do this in 3 minutes. Another project that I proposed to the town is turning the community center portion of the space to create into what's considered a resilience hub, which would be adding a small microgrid to the community center that would have solar on the roof and a battery bank In available for the loads in the community center, which in the lower diagram is space number 1. I worked with on behalf of SMPI, I worked with the developers to pre-wire the space to create for this possibility. And going to the next slide, I think there's another slide. This is essentially what some of the definition of what a resilience hub is. Basically, it becomes an emergency shelter or potentially emergency shelter, but that particular spot in the space to create would have backup power in case of an extended outage with all of the usual benefits you might assume from having that afforded. The budget for this, which I think is on the next slide, is about $35,000 before the federal credits, might be as little as $25,000 after. This is an example of a Tesla power wall combined with a roof mounted array. This has now, this capital budget of 30 to 35, I think it was 35, was currently put into the 5-year budget with the town, with the asterisk that we're going to look for near-term grant opportunities and possibly push this forward into the 2023 budget. So just a FYI to this community that here's another solar microgrid project that the town is actively considering. That's it.
Hey, I got one more thing to throw out, Terry, and for Preston and JT as well. Is there any I was on the committee a while back trying to find a place to make a dog park for the town. So I got to know all the town properties pretty well. And between the soccer field and County Road, whatever that is, 23, that's all town property. And the soil is probably way better over there for agriculture. And back behind, they made a little baseball field. I don't know if that'd be an ideal spot for a solar array where a baseball is being played, but there's a lot of town property in that area that would have much higher quality soil.
And that has been considered, so that piece of property is also being vetted. That was discussed by John, Preston, and I a year or so ago as well. So that's another possibility. It's got less without digging up the baseball diamond. There's less available space than Green Street. And then it does have good southern exposure. It doesn't have quite the same proximity to 3-phase power, but it's got some advantages and disadvantages. One of the possibilities there is the visual impact. It's in the view corridor between Solar Ranches and the Cimarrons, whereas this would not have as much of a visual impact into a view corridor. But it's good observation. That's another possible space that the town has that could be vetted for a similar idea.
Well, thanks. I love all your ideas.
Angela's got a question, folks.
I'm going to bundle it into 2 questions. Does this battery bank, would that all need to be installed before people move in there? Would that need to be go into the wall? So is this a timely thing, or is that something that could be installed after the fact?
It can be installed after the fact, and this is only affecting the community space, not the residents. So this would only provide backup to so you may or may not know that we have a 2,000 square foot community space carve out in that building, which has been pre-wired for this. So there's space in the utility room to install the battery pack, and there's conduit already running up to the roof for the solar array. So it's pre-wired for this installation, and it wouldn't even be visible. It would just be that when the power goes out, the community center remains lit and would have outlets for people to come and charge their cell phones and their iPads and so forth, and be a gathering place if there was an extended outage or some sort of a weather related emergency or other form of emergency.
That sounds awesome. My last question goes back to my initial questions were like Vicki said, I think we're all super in favor of what you all are doing at San Miguel Power, but how do these projects relate to our committee? Because you and JT are on town council, and it sounds like you've already discussed these with town council. So what is our role?
It's a great question. It's more informational. This microgrid for the community center has nothing to do with the committee. It's just more, hey, there's another fun thing that's going on. It just happened to be part of the same PowerPoint presentation. The angle that is of relevance to this committee is the idea that this community solar garden could be a source of compliance for the net zero requirement that you guys are going to take up and vet and promote or propose to the town council.
Great, thank you.
JT, one final question, Terry, the solar panels that you're gonna put, that you propose putting on the Space to Create building, who owns the electricity coming off those panels?
It would be the town would pay for it, and they would offset during the day, just like your house, they would offset the electric use of the town community center. So it would be strictly for that one load in that building. So it would provide offset to the annual electric bill and then be available for recharging the batteries in the case of an extended outage. So the battery bank would be somewhere around 13, 15 kilowatt hours, enough for more than a day's worth of basic load for that community center. Then the solar would be a source of recharge in an extended outage. But meanwhile, during 99% of the time, the solar panels are just eating the electric load of that town account.
Good, and they're basically sized to cover what we expect that town account to
Yeah,
use.
and with a rough swag, because we don't have any history on it yet. So I've pretty much sized it based on available space, not so much the load at the moment.
Right.
One other quick, because you're a solar geek, Dave, one other quick thing about the community solar garden is we could use what they call bifacial modules, which would then allow for production from light that is absorbed from the back of the array, which would further increase the efficiency of the output.
Which you do in Telluride now, right?
That's right. Yep. Exactly.
Neat.
I just have one question because I'm a little confused. So this, what you're showing right now, the little mini grid, microgrid,
Mhm.
it's running 24/7 electric or only in an outage?
No, so the solar panels during the day, skip the batteries for the moment, but the solar panels during the day are just grid tied like a net metered system, meaning that they power, they offset the use of the meter, which is associated with the town's account for that space. And then the batteries are only put into play if there's an outage. And if there's an extended outage, then the solar panels can't feed the grid because the grid is down. So then they recharge the battery and extend the amount of time that the battery bank can provide backup to those loads.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All righty, Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
All righty. Yeah, thanks again for all you do.
I'm going to sit in for the rest of your meeting and just listen.
All
If
right.
you don't,
And Kim has joined us. for
And I
the-
just saw that Kim popped up there as well. Are you there, Kim?
I am here, yes.
Hi there.
Hi.
Glad you're joining us. I was gonna, before we move on a little bit, I was gonna ask you and tell everybody that today we had and Kim, were you at that online meeting regarding Crescent Butte today?
No, I hadn't heard anything about that.
It was a review, it was a case study of the process for beneficial electrification with the building codes in Crescent Butte. It was very good. I saved all the slides from it and I'm hoping to get the Zoom to share with everybody as well. But there was really good information on that process. And
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that. I don't, did you, and get on whatever list it was that you found out about it for through.
yeah, I was actually, there were a lot of people attending. I was surprised I didn't see your name pop up there, but that's why I asked if you were there or not. Anyway, Chris.
On through CC4CA.
Oh, interesting. I'm on other lists for them, but apparently not this one.
Gotcha. And even ahead of this, they had done a case study that's in print as well. I think Dana printed out hers. Sorry, we're laughing at Terry's canine friend here. It's on the big screen. But I also placed that's on our Google Drive as well, in the energy folder.
The slides, right?
The slides are not there yet, but the draft of the Crescent experience of adopting the electrification into their codes but they did a great job explaining today. And I'll put the slides of that in there as well. What the pros and cons were of going through that process and why they decided to boldly institute that sooner than later. And they also gave feedback of what that experience was like working with the building community, with local engineers, So anyway, good stuff. So I thought that might be a good segue into what you wanted to share with us today as well, Kim.
Yeah, that would be really helpful to see all of that. What I have is a report from the memorandum from town council and their discussion from there that I think I sent out to the Snuffles Energy Board. I don't know that I have access to the Ridgway Google Drive though for those files. So
I can pull them off and send them separately in an email to you right now.
okay, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Already. On the heels of that, does that work for you and all of the things that you're working on? But specifically, did you want to jump right in and tell us why you wanted to join us today?
Sure. Terry actually requested that I join to let you guys, just give you guys a brief update on the regional EV readiness plan that Eco Action Partners is developing. And that includes Ridgway. It's partnership between Uriah County, San Miguel County, and SMPA to help fund the regional application that went for grant funding for that project. And we applied to both the Colorado Energy Office as well as DOLA. We have the funding and contract in place with DOLA, and we're following up on the Colorado Energy Office, and hopefully that one will be there soon as well. We have a master's student in place. His name is Xander, and he is reaching out to all of the key government contacts for this project. So he'll be reaching out to Preston soon to set up a meeting with us. We're essentially interviewing the key government people at each jurisdiction to find out, to build this EV readiness plan. And then we'll have a task force across the region. We'll also be talking with a lot of other stakeholders, either that have fleets of vehicles or gas station owners that have or have not yet put in EV charging stations. Essentially, the purpose of this readiness plan is to find out what our region needs in order to be ready for EV vehicles. So what infrastructure is needed as far as charging or et cetera. And charging that can be public charging at multifamily or mixed use buildings, as well as residential or HOA type of buildings, including then also what do governments need in order to be ready and have the infrastructure in place so that when you're ready to change over your fleets of either fleet vehicles or any other heavier duty vehicles or lighter weight duties vehicles, like what do you need to have in place for infrastructure in order to charge or maintain those vehicles? So that's essentially the scope of the plan. It spans across San Miguel and Uriah counties. Our goal for that, or our project deadline for that, is this next spring, so April. And we'll be looking for, kind of any public input on it as well.
On that last note right there, given everything you said preceding that as well, but on that last note, from our committee, how can we facilitate getting some of that information in, not just with the government officials that you need to interview, but in terms of stakeholders here in Uriah County? What kind of lifting can we do on that from this committee's perspective?
I guess any information, thoughts, ideas that you are already aware of, definitely you can send them. The email address for Xander will soon be xander@ecoactionpartners.org, and it's Xander with an Xander. That's getting set up pretty much as we speak. You can also email me any information and I'll forward it to him. That's Kim@ecoactionpartners.org. We will also want to be or ask for, I think, or just ask you guys if you would like us to have some time on one of your agendas as the project has progressed a little bit further, so then we can speak to you and get input as a committee. I think, right.
Come January or February, is that the kind of timeline you're thinking about?
Probably, yeah, because right now it's kind of, we've kind of been establishing, okay, what's going to be included in the readiness plan. What type of research needs to be done. Xander's already looked at multiple other plans from other communities. Ours is regional versus community, but we're also trying to make it pretty specific so that it's very useful, action-oriented plan versus some of them are very kind of general and high level. As part of the information that will be included in it would be grant opportunities. So once we know what funding will be available from the state, from the IRA funds, or any other funding opportunity, that will be included into the plan. So yeah, I think kind of January timeframe might be a good timing for once we have more put together and have more to present upon, then Xander can, we'll have more of an idea of what needs to be, what input we need from the community and vice versa.
Got it.
But I think right now, if you have any ideas of people, stakeholders in the community that we may not be aware of, that we need to reach out to and either just interview or have as part of the task force, please send those names and contact information our way.
That's a question, JT.
Yep, go ahead.
Thanks. And that's awesome, Kim. Thanks so much. I guess I saw somewhere recently that the feds are going to give $1 billion to schools for EV buses, and I don't know what kind of site that would take, what type of station to power a school bus, but that would be a good thing to figure out if how much we might get and like in the long range, what it would take for our schools, because those are quite a bit bigger than your typical EV.
I agree. And I think I saw something similar, at least for some funding that had already been awarded. A lot of it was for urban locations. But I would think that more would be coming down the pike over the next few years through the IRA funds. So again, that's something we'll just have to kind of keep our eye on and find out and stay aware of what is coming and make sure the schools are plugged into. So that we can take advantage of it when it is applicable to where we live.
Super.
Yeah, on that note, the Ridgway schools applied for a grant to get an electric school bus, and I just sent Shane a note and he let me know that they did not get funding. So
Who did they apply to?
Colorado Energy Office, I think.
Okay.
From what I'm learning, and Xander will certainly be more of an expert once we get to this, but there's been a lot of certainly SMART, the San Miguel Area Regional Transit Authority, has been doing a lot of research on electric buses. I think a lot of advancements in the technology are going to come that will help make them more useful for our region. And certainly school buses have different uses than public transit buses that are used in a different schedule. But kind of all of that are factors into what types of buses or what charging is needed to make them useful or appropriate, I guess, in our type of mountain territory. So I'm certainly not the expert on the EVs. Xander is doing a lot of the research. It's his project. I'm more facilitating and mentoring him with it. So I just wanted to let you all know that that's in the works. One of Eco Action's projects that came out of the Climate Action Plan. And definitely a more detailed discussion in the future would be great to have with you.
Wonderful.
Great, Kim. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions at the moment related to that or anything else that I might be able to tell you about?
Have you started your new job, your important job in Denver?
We had our first Energy Code Board meeting last Monday.
Great.
Yeah, it was essentially setting the ground rules and how the board was going to function. So nothing too informational yet, as far as nothing too exciting yet as far as codes go, but the process has started.
This is Vicky. Just a comment about the school buses. You know, they're used so little, like 2 hours a day. for 9 months. I wonder if we could have some dual purpose that was more also like a public service for sort of use the school buses when they weren't delivering kids to and from school to make us more higher up in the queue to receive something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think ideas like that are all what will need to be explored in order to determine the feasibility of which vehicles are transitioned over to electric first. Yeah.
That's a good question. It's a good thing to explore in discussion of any of the energy demands within a community. Thanks for that, Vicky. Alrighty.
Thank you all. I'm gonna sign off. I'm testing all of the apartment units down here at Space to Create. Trying to finish this up by tomorrow. So
I'm from down the street.
Great.
Thanks for taking the
Thanks,
time.
Kim. Glad you're feeling better.
thank you. Thanks so much. And we'll talk to you guys more soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Alrighty. After those two things that we've just navigated, anybody have any questions right off the bat that we need to address, or anybody out there listening?
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
When we were talking about the building of the agrivoltaic solar array, is there battery banking options for that? Because I just remember Terry talking about how most of the demands, the highest diurnal demands we have are kind of in the morning and the evening when solar is often not available. If we have banking capacity and that integrated into future build outs, could that help with being able to actually use green energy when the demand is the highest?
The answer is yes. In fact, I didn't bring it up, but I am looking into having battery bank installed with these for multiple purposes, both for resiliency for the loads that are nearby, for the purpose you mentioned, which is self-consumption or peak shifting, as well as demand charge reduction. And the reason to look at using batteries is there's a whole lot of additional funding available if we tag batteries to the system. So it may be a great way to help fund it, but I didn't want to go into that level of detail, but it's a good point. And it's a good observation.
Great, thank you. And then that's it from now.
All right. Thanks to both of you. Is that everybody? Yeah. Alrighty, you guys, let's move on to what Preston characterized last time as a further robust conversation about what our priorities are here as far as circling the wagons and figuring out what our objectives and priorities are. Thanks to Angela for having everybody chime in with their individual goals and objectives and desires for what we have going on here. And I think, has everybody had a chance to read everybody's personal statements?
It's a draft.
I have not, and I apologize. I am at a conference right now on water and wastewater, and I have not had any time, so I'm just kind of jumping in, and I'll likely have to jump off in the next few minutes. But I tried to make some bullet points in mind while Terry was presenting, so I have some stuff, but I may end up missing a little bit of this portion as a heads up, since I've got to wrap up soon.
Gotcha. If you need to leave, I can share with everybody here the email you sent me and the things that you were most curious about, if that helps fill that gap.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, since we're kind of jumping into it, I personally, my goals are to be able to like support the sustainable energy effort, but also whatever the team kind of comes up with, focusing on water conservation and efficiency. I know last time that I had mentioned a possible evaluation of a lower water rate structure to I guess, incentivize households to use less water, because a 5,000 gallon per day is quite large. And I think if you are not watering lawns and things like that, you don't necessarily need to utilize that much water. But if you don't have any sort of financial incentive to conserve, there's probably less awareness of like, why take a 10-minute shower when I can just do this 20-30-minute shower, that kind of thing. So I don't have too much different than last time. And I think that when we went around the table, most people were in alignment with just slightly different versions of it, but it was pretty agreeable roundtable.
Got it. The stuff that you're navigating at the conference on wastewater stuff, is that related to just added edification for you, or is that related to a job you're working on?
A colleague of mine is presenting at this on-site wastewater conference, so it was just good education for me, as well as supporting my colleague in his presentations. And it's always kind of good to see kind of what is getting done on residential wastewater, because centralized wastewater is ideal, but so many people in rural areas don't have that ability. And seeing what else is out there when you have either poor soil conditions or need to meet nutrient demands and other things, it is always great to be educated on.
Alrighty, well, great to know the primer on that. That's applicable for our rural area as well, especially out in the county, although we're town focused here, but our neighbors certainly are navigating that. So thanks. Look forward to more updates. Dave, did you have a question?
No, we will be too in the future.
Truth. Yeah. Especially on the municipal side here.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So you guys, moving on then in terms of this broader discussion that we need to get into here is really to zero in on our priorities under the categories of water, energy, education, which seemed like those were the most important things that we've shown a light on last time. And then this is just going to open up for discussion how we're going to do that. Preston, did you have something? Oh. Dana?
Well, I'd like to bring up another issue other than water and energy, which is to educate the community. I've really been enlightened from the Crested Butte Community Compass of everything that they did before they put their building codes, which they're voting on November 7th, the town council. I'm going to go to that meeting.
Well, that's under the, I just said water, energy, and education.
Oh, I didn't hear you say education.
Okay. So
Anyway, they have some great, do you want me to hear, do you want to hear some details, or do I just have to generally say that? I think a board, a community board, not one that's behind glass, like the one here and the one at the post office are both behind glass. I think, and I could get Brent to build one if we had a place to put it, where people could actually put whatever they wanted in relationship to climate or to our community concerns, if you want to put it that way. He did make it even broader than climate. And then they also put in the newspaper, and she sent me the notices that they put in the community, in the newspaper, to get the community involved in this whole process of doing this compass, which I don't think we can go forward with changing the building codes without at least presenting ourselves to the community somehow, that we want, and having their input. Like it's the community process. If we tried to say, oh, well, we're going completely green, just like Crested Butte is actually doing now, without involving the community, we're going to be up in arms.
Gotcha. But before we get into the weeds on what we're going to do, like under the umbrella of the educational component, let's break these down. Is everybody on the same page right now? At least in terms of, you're shaking your head, Angela.
Well, Dave had a point, but I had one additional thing that I think is pretty critical to, before we get too narrowed in.
Oh,
Can I?
yeah.
Say that?
I was just trying to create some structure where we're going.
Yeah,
we were
well,
gonna
mine,
get
one of mine that's on my thing wasn't included in your three, so I brought it up the last time, and I think it ties in with Dana's point here, is credibility. And I feel like we get these great presentations and we know what's going on here, and the climate action plan, and incentives and rebates. But I feel like we need to know what everybody's doing and their work that's contributing to us, like the work Dave's doing, in order for us to move forward. Like my head's a little spinning with all these presentations are great, but like as a committee, how do we harness all that? And I feel like I feel like we need a body of information that's maybe on our webpage or it's in our Google Drive of who's doing what that contributes to the work we want to do, how we use them. Because I don't feel like we can be that effective just by ourselves with all the stuff that's already going on. And we're not really, I don't know how to tap into that. You probably have a better idea. Dave has a better idea. Terry does, but I think the committee needs as a whole to have a body of knowledge as to who's on the team here and what are the skill sets that everybody brings so we can come up with a plan. So that's all.
And how would you do that?
Well, I guess I would request that each chair of whatever committees are on the team send a statement to this committee what they can do to support our efforts, or what they would like us to do to present to town council that they're doing, and what they're already working on. Because I think this, like the work that Dave is doing, the work that Terry's doing, we don't need to be redundant. And right now I'm not at a place where I feel like I would know where to even start, because I don't want to be redundant.
I like that.
I don't know how to do that, but I think Dana's point with the education and the credibility, will get a lot more credibility in the community if we had our own web page.
Exactly.
And we said, this is the team. We're drawing from all the work that's being done in the climate action plan. And this is the rebates where you can find what San Miguel's doing and how you can lower your costs. So it's like one place that the community could go to rather than having to figure it all out themselves.
And then, so a clearinghouse, where
Yeah.
does that
A
clearinghouse,
Good.
where does that clearinghouse belong?
On the town website, on our webpage.
So do you think we could work on a questionnaire that we would send to each of these groups that
That's
we
a good
identify?
idea, like a survey or something.
Yeah, and because I like the questions you asked, asking them what they're doing and also how we can help or how what might tie in with us. I think if we could identify a survey and then identify groups.
Yeah.
And that seems to me that's the best way to start that dialogue. So maybe a couple of us could start working on a
Well, what I started to say before
list of questions.
is that they included some inserts in the newspaper, and then they had people sitting at the post office at tables that were from council members, say, or people from our committees, with questionnaires that people would fill out. And then they also went to, I wish you guys need to look at this, get on their site, because it gives,
It's in our page.
Dana, it's in the folders.
oh, it is,
Yeah.
because it gives a description of everybody that they sent a questionnaire to, which would give us, this is like a blueprint of what we need to do,
It is.
honestly.
It's a lot fancier
It's a
than what we
frickin'
do.
blueprint. And it just defines it out, connect the community, connect everybody that's gonna be involved in this process somehow, and then start to work on, changing the codes.
Gotcha. And I think we're all talking about similar stuff. We're just kind of semantically coming at it from a little bit of a different angle. So like when I'm posing just in these general contexts in terms of education, so like within education, do we use our bandwidth and create a website where we identify our task forces, we identify our stakeholders, we have a place for information to be exchanged between us and the community. We can make announcements for events that we want to hold, a survey, and post surveys out that way, stuff like that. So those are the kind of the umbrellas I'm looking at. So like when, for instance, you look at a plan like the Compass, that Crested Butte has, or if you look at Eco Action Partners and you see how they've broken up things into sectors, we're so early on in this committee structure. Those are the kind of things that I wanted to draw a big circle and figure out what topics are that we're going to put into those, and then how are we going to execute those. So that was the first way I was coming at it, but it sounds like it's all the same stuff that we're all interested in. And
I have an idea about, like, when Angela was talking about that, if everybody's familiar with the mind map idea for public speaking or teaching, super simplifies where you put things in boxes and circles and draw connecting lines, and how we could like connect us to all these other committees, and even like show individuals how they can be like involved and like where they would like be easier for them to step into the process of getting involved in stuff like this too. So I think that would be a nice simple way to start. Then we could grow from there. And one more education idea is maybe we could be part of a SHRB talk, because that gets a lot of community involvement. And I think it wouldn't be super enticing for just to have a SHRB talk on what we're doing, but maybe we could pull in a really exciting speaker about climate, and we could sort of introduce the evening with what we are and what we're doing and what we're about and something like that.
all right. And I think that's a component, and those are solutions to the, within the educational part of what we need to do, right? So like, how do we want to run the education component of this committee? Do we have that kind of event, a speaker series sponsored by the Sustainability Advisory Board? I think those are all important things to compost into this discussion right now, and then figure out how much we can execute. And Dave's had a question for a bit.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we're in the weeds, and that we need to prioritize our tasks here. And I'm concerned that one of the principal opportunities we have is this, we're relooking at the right now at the building codes. And if this group is going to make a recommendation regarding the building codes, I think we don't have much time, and we aren't discussing that. I thought the presentation that Crested Butte made was great, but they had one key slide that kind of relates to what you're saying is, what are your priorities and where do you want to go? So do you want to be electric ready? Do you want to be electric preferred? Do you want to be electric only for certain, So they go from the least to the most. Clearly, if you're doing the most, if we're going to say that all homes need to be all electric, we got to do a lot of education before we do that.
Exactly.
That's not something you foist on the community without educating people and giving them voice. However, if you want to say all homes need to be electric ready, that to me is something that doesn't require as much education and might be a feasible thing to recommend to the town council, in the short term as a first step. So I guess that's my question is, I don't want to, great presentations by Terry and Kim and great discussion here, but we haven't talked at all about what are we going to recommend in the short term to the town council as they look at these codes. And, to me, it's electric ready. We should recommend that.
Yeah, I'm 100% agree. That was my first priority. I guess the sidetrack I took us on was, I don't know what our resources are and what work's already been done. So for me to like dive into the codes I know that's not the best use of my time because another group's already done that and they know exactly what should be done. So that I 100% agree with you, Dave, and that's my vote. We make this happen for the town while we have the opportunity.
Well, we can do the town and we can do the council and the town at the same time. It's just two different,
Well,
it's two different.
one's
focuses.
the short term,
Exactly,
the other's the longer term.
exactly.
So,
But it doesn't have to be one and then the other. We can combine them both. We can do the education as well as talking to the town council.
right, but one's gonna take a lot longer. The short term, we've got to, we have limited time. We've got to execute pretty quickly.
So last meeting, if I can just jump in, it was a great hefty conversation about what everyone is passionate about, wants to see this group, this board kind of tackle, right? If you read the minutes, didn't list everything that was voiced, but there were some common themes, of course. So I think a little bit of what you're getting at was discussed last meeting. And this is a continuation of that because we're at a point where, you know, each of you has everyone's different, right? But there were some common themes and we need to revisit what those common themes were. And Angela, I love what you were saying. I wrote down the clearinghouse piece, developing a questionnaire to send out to the other individuals and entities making substantial sustainability and climate action efforts in an effort to garner all that information so we can create that clearinghouse on the webpage. That's fantastic. Now, if everyone's in agreement with making that like a priority or something to undertake here in the near term, when I say near term, I mean like next couple of months going into 2023, let's memorialize that. What you're saying makes a ton of sense to me, at least, from a personal perspective. Yeah, I mean, at the last meeting, Kim Wheels was here also and talked about how she's on that 1362 board and how Angela was talking about redundancy, and we want to avoid the redundancy. Why don't we wait and sit back and wait for them to come out with their recommendations related to energy code modifications, amendments, stuff like that. And then at that time, we'll delve into it and figure out what's best for Ridgway. I don't know if I summarized it in the best way, but that's kind of what I took away from that. And so I think not being redundant is going to be key here, but the last thing I'll say is I think you're on the exact right track. We do need to identify the things to focus on, and that's what JT's trying to get us to identify at this point.
I was really impressed in that talk today, what all the other counties or municipalities are doing in this regard. And so many of them are all electric or beyond. It's clear that, with Colorado law, as of next July, any code change, we have to be at least all electric and probably beyond that. And we've got the books open right now. Let's recommend that we become all electric and then work on a timetable on, and once we have a timetable, then we can start educating and helping people get ready for that. Those would be my.
If we can get ahead of that, we know what the requirements are gonna be, why not do them ahead of time? And I guess I just wanna make sure that I understood that we have an opportunity while the town codes are being edited or revised to recommend something that could be included in that revision. Am I understanding that right? I think it was Terry the last time said, let's be sure and move forward on this while we have the opportunity. And if that's the case, it seems like that should be our priority.
Absolutely.
So the town code is being revised or amended as it relates to the subdivision procedure and chapter 7 planning and zoning. Elemental level, that's the best way I can describe it. It doesn't really have any bearing on what's being done here. It's not related to energy efficiency or building codes and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's one piece. The other piece, coming back to like the energy codes, which you're getting at, is, and I guess I have a question for you because maybe it's just not clear to me. The requirement based on 1362 is that communities by a certain time have to become EV ready. Is that is that, would adopting the 2021 IECC cover that? Is
I
that?
don't know, because we I haven't seen that, or
So then,
is Kim still, Kim is our expert on codes, but I don't know.
If I could have, I would have brought a slide up for you guys. I do believe it is related to that. Some communities are still hinging on the 2019, which even some of the state folks mentioned today, or like Sweet mentioned, that was, it's not bad. But there's definitely room for improvement. And the stuff that Kim's working on right now will take it even to the next level, right? As a supplement to the most recent IECC. And really put Colorado into another level. And then underneath that, it's giving all the communities the opportunity to figure out how they want to prepare based on their given resources, to give them sovereignty to go through their own process.
so perhaps to just piggyback on that, a priority or a goal should be kind of exactly what you just said. This group should be charged with, figuring out if we want to do not a good way to say it, but the bare minimum, right? Adopting the 2021 IECC or further exploring what this board is tasked with to get more cutting edge and to get more climate friendly, energy friendly.
And
Might not be the right way to say it,
and to
but I
be-
guess we're getting-
And to be clear, my hope for today in categorizing what are the dominant themes, the education, the energy, and God, what did I just say? And water. Within those three, to work on one of those at a time, and specifically figure out what we want to prioritize with our bandwidth as an unpaid volunteer committee that's providing the best resources for the town council. And so, we basically flipped it upside down and started getting into the weeds by Dana talking about a specific educational way a town's implemented that. But I want to fight for that space so that we can zoom in on the electrification side, we can say our priority right now is to work with Kim, understand what's coming down the pike, to have a good understanding of our chapter 6 and 7 in our codes, and know which ones that we can dig into together in this time together and in between our meetings, so that we can best understand that, to give a good recommendation to me to pass on to the council, and go from one Venn circle to the next, and come up with things, to all of those being, laboratories, and with things to be added into and subtracted from as we discover what's time sensitive. That makes sense.
Oh, yeah, JT,
Go to
JT,
Ken. Ken's had his hands up for a while.
yeah, JT, to that end, I have a couple specific code revisions that I'd like to just throw out there. This is what kind of my wheelhouse, and they are specific, but this is kind of where I'm headed with some of this stuff as far as in the municipal code performance standards section. I think that the light industrial zones, I1 and I2, that the applicants should provide detailed sustainability measures along with a use mitigation report with their application. And hazardous materials should be removed or allowed on a case-by-case basis, because paint thinner can be considered a hazardous material, but it's not battery acid. So hazmats need to be considered on a case-by-case basis. It's drilling down, it's detail oriented, but I just want to put this out there to the committee that this is, these are the kind of things that we're going to have to get specific with the town as far as revising the building codes. Another one is new multifamily development and PUD applications must be solar ready and EV ready. And to that end, and I know Terry didn't agree with this, but 75% of the units must have south facing roofs with a 6 to 8/12 pitch. And the developer should have to prove hardship for exemptions, because that's true, some sites don't allow But the burden of proof should be on the developer, not just, oh, okay, it's fine. And provide conduit for rooftop solar, EV charging. And these are pretty minor, all that stuff can be done on a computer. You do all these things in the planning stage, and it doesn't cost the developer any money to do it. And it allows the development, or and this is for multifamily. Single family homes is another. I think that's an area we should stay away from, frankly.
Why would we stay away from single family homes?
We can encourage, but then when we do stuff like this, we put the financial burden on the homeowner and not a developer.
Well, I think most of us sitting at the table disagree.
Yeah.
That it should be, and everyone needs to take accountability for it.
I need a clarification. What is the difference between electric ready and solar ready? What's the difference?
Well, solar ready is a conduit to your roof.
Yeah,
That would come down to your panel. So you're ready to put a wire
so they're
up,
two different
up there.
things.
Electric ready, there are three different big areas. One is your heat, another is your water, hot water, and another is your cooking.
Right.
So you have the proper voltage lines to the areas. So even if you put in a gas heater, you have a 240 volt line there. So in the future, you could swap that out and,
For electric. I see
Yeah.
what you're saying. So you're not saying requiring new construction to have all electric
No,
appliances?
you're wired.
Why wouldn't you require all electric appliances now?
Well,
Why?
because we're going to have to do the
They're gonna be
education.
cheaper.
I agree, but we're going to have to do the education. So what is,
Long range plan.
Catch
mid-range
22
plan.
here.
well, what's the first step that we can try to do with the town council by January, February? Because that's the time that we're looking in the next couple of months.
Exactly.
What's reasonable as a first step that we could do without the education piece? It's so critical as we move forward to, bigger pieces.
I will share with you guys today's Zoom, the experience of Crested Butte going through this process. And all the questions that you had were all part of their educational component, so that people could understand the basic mechanics of what their objectives were. They had relationships with developers, local builders, local engineers, and they were able to explain the things that they had to do their own, as in their case, the council, what homework they had to do before they could even roll it out to the public. And they also, most importantly, discussed their process, which I had originally thought had been done too quickly, but they explained the reason why they did it so quickly. And it was based upon their own homework of looking at the amount of building sites that remained in the town of Crested Butte, and realized that if they didn't act now, they couldn't make any progress, not just on the new builds, but on doing any kind of mitigation on existing inventory of houses, and going through the incentivization process on those as well, especially with different monies coming down the pike right now. So I'll share that with you guys. So I think all of the questions you're asking, both in the weeds on like the mechanics of how do you do this, and the terminology, that's all important stuff that we need to lump into the educational umbrella of what we're doing. And there's going to be an educational component in water. There's going to be an educational component in energy and in education in general, outreach, communication, stakeholder development, all of that stuff is going to be really important.
Can I
I
ask?
want to go back, excuse me, I want to go back to the outcry there about why not have single family homes do all these things too. And a single family home is a very personal experience for the homeowner. And whereas a developer is a developer, they're building this to make money. And if you really want to not piss off a bunch of people right out of the gate, you shouldn't require single family homeowners to do all these things until they're educated, like you're saying. So there's a horse and cart thing going on there.
Ken, I think we're gonna have a lot more kickback by south-facing roofs, and I guess I wonder what the rationale is there, because I have solar panels on a west-facing roof, they work just fine. Is that for like development, because they have much greater need? Because
Yeah, all those suggestions, all the suggestions were for multifamily units and PUDs. So those are developed, those are built by developers. They can design that in there. West facing is fine, except in the summer, in the winter, sorry, and the same thing with east. And Terry, I hope you agree. South facing is the prime. That's the ideal, and you said so yourself in your presentation, Terry. Southern exposure.
Yeah, south
So-
facing is ideal, but my array powers my whole house on the east facing roof.
Right, but not, if it's possible, why not make it optimum, do the optimal.
It's a function of how many panels. So if you put solar
Right.
panels on an east or a west, you guys have to put more than you would a south. So you don't have to require south facing roofs. You just have to require, it's just a function of, the cost. So east and west is slightly
Right.
more.
Okay, so let me jump in, guys. This group needs to walk before it runs.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you guys are sprinting
Yes.
right now.
Right.
So I gotta suggest
We only have
that
2
we
months.
bring it back around and really try to figure out some focus areas and some priorities to focus on. You don't have to do it tonight. It would be recommended that you guys start putting pen to paper and get some goals and priorities tonight so that I can get it translated into the strategic plan to present to the town council, and perhaps some funding associated with some of those items. It really just depends on how it evolves. That's not imperative. I mean, you can continue this conversation, into the next few months, but I'll go back. You gotta walk before, you gotta crawl before you run, and you guys are running. So let's bring it back around to what you guys want to focus on.
I'd like to suggest something more general on a new thread. I think we have to keep in mind that town council has the ultimate decision. We're just making suggestions. And I suggest we start with the bar pretty high and look into the future, and then give like a couple of options, like on a spectrum of what we think would be either ideal or like let's on the track to ideal, and have the town decide how aggressive they're going to act. But I don't think we should lower our standards to get approval.
Thank you. Can I recommend that moving forward, I think this is all awesome, Preston, thank you, that we all practice economy of speech. Try to reduce the amount of words we have to really make our statements concise so we can spend the next half hour narrowing down on this.
Could I make could I make a motion that we get together, some of us, and literally sit down with the municipal code and go through it instead of like haphazardly doing it? I mean, we have to at some point
But
go through the building code.
so the town in general revises the municipal code every 5 years?
No, it's ongoing. It depends on what new regulations or policies are being explored.
Okay.
But it can be explored. Are you talking about energy or are you talking about just in general?
In general, I thought that
It's a living document.
it's a living document. Okay, so it could be
Good, that's
done.
good to know.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think that's a good idea. I'm concerned that we miss this window that right now this process is underway. And it seems to me that this committee could recommend the first step, which is very low cost. So making a home electric ready, putting a conduit to the roof, putting the proper
That's solar
voltage.
array.
That's solar ready.
So it's electric
So
and solar.
electric
ready.
and solar,
That's
and
what
it
I
also
was-
includes 240 volts to your garage, because that's where you, but that to me would be a recommendation to the town while they're looking at building codes right now. And, you know, I would propose that we take a vote on that and tonight, and, you know, can we recommend that to the town as they're looking at the building codes? Can we add, you know, that all new homes will be solar ready and electric ready? And, you know, there are a number of municipalities out there right now that have added that to their codes, so we could go steal the language from one of them.
Yes.
Right.
I'm in
let's just-
support of that.
I am too.
What'd you say?
I'm in support of that.
Okay, so good. That's what we need here. We need consensus on some of this.
Well, I don't know. if
Stuff.
they would.
But I just want
Dana
to,
is too.
I am too.
yeah,
That's it.
you're proposing that, the town, by way of this committee, planning commission, potentially town council, further explore, an ordinance legislation. Let's see, mandating that all new homes, all new
Buildings, new
New
construction.
residential and commercial.
Correct. Yes.
Be built in a way where they are, solar ready.
Electric and solar ready.
Electric and
Electric
solar.
and solar ready.
Right. And EV ready, I guess, but that may be included in. Probably
It's electric vehicle, right? So
Yeah,
it's different.
should-
Don't we need a time frame too, like by March 2023 or something like that?
No, I would say during this current cycle of, because the books are open right now, so this,
Right.
during this current process of revising the.
Codes.
So-
Yeah, we're in,
Just to be clear, we're not revising building codes. But I know what you're saying.
we are.
What? Yeah, we are. Oh, you're talking about like this group?
No, I'm just saying, while we have the moratorium, while we're looking at the building code, this would be a great time.
Well, sorry to jump in. So
No, no,
just trying to hone in on this one, because it's
Right.
great.
Right.
If there's consensus, then we write that down, I think, provided you all are okay with it.
Well,
You run with that one. There's gonna be
I don't know
others.
about Ken or.
I think we
With that
should,
specific goal, we would identify it on the annual strategic plan specific to the sustainability advisory. And, you know, in the coming months, we can focus on doing research. I say we, you, all of us, staff included, do research. We're just talking to, don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's already language out there. Sorry for pointing, which is the way I think.
Right.
There's language out there we can explore and get around the table, figure out how to mesh it for our community and perhaps get an ordinance drafted for everyone to review collectively here and beyond. So again, I'm just thinking out loud, but I think what you proposed is great and a great line of thinking for what this committee should be doing.
Yeah.
And itty bitty steps, right?
Right.
It seems like it would be
Starting
really
point.
helpful to have also like what that additional cost would be. And I don't know if that would be an easy thing to say for a single family residential home to do this is gonna cost $5,000 extra. To do that for a development is gonna cost $10,000, because I think that that's a big part of the town buying into it. And are there incentives? Are there rebates that'll help offset that?
Right, the rebates.
And the rest of you
That's-
had all that.
all of that information
Yeah.
today.
I just want to say one last thing and I'll stop.
Please, and then everybody chime in.
Your perspective on the deal today was interesting because I thought they went way too fast in doing that. March, April, they had staff kind of explore everything. May, June, they had public engagement. And I heard a council member say, oh, we didn't even really get many, if any, developers in the community to participate in that process. Well, that's kind of a big deal.
I thought Jason said he was,
Yeah, they had quite a
yeah,
few.
Jason said he was happy with the amount of
Yeah.
people in the building community that they had gotten to participate.
I was.
I heard what you heard.
I thought he was disappointed. But
Yeah.
Anyway, then, public engagement for 2 months, then the following 2 months was an action via an ordinance. I mean, that's 6 months.
Yeah.
Which,
Plan is
from a
done.
personal standpoint, I think that's a very short amount of time. That goes back to impetus, which was, them looking around and just wanting to make sure they get it done, right? So, anyway, I wanted to share that. That's why I took.
I think for their, just for their context, for their particular town, I think it functioned well for the pressures that they're dealing with, which are different than ours.
Sure.
I wasn't being prescriptive at all and saying that we should follow a similar cadence by any means. But I will, to your point, I want to rein this back in again a little bit. To your point, Angela, yes, all of that information is actually out there. And actually a lot of what I've been putting onto the Google Drive, I don't know if you've been, it has been pertinent to that. I'll add in all of the stuff that I got from the Crested Butte example today. And to Dana's point, as far as a motion to go through the building codes, I would suggest as a way for our collective sanity for our next meeting, that rather than having the agenda be set for these general themes, I think we know right now, just by demonstration of what everybody's been talking about in terms of codes, that we do follow on Dana's suggestion, and then we make it a working session where we go into the building codes sitting here together so that we, even if we have to read them out loud, chapter 6 and chapter 7, so that we all know what we're talking about, key in on the ones that need the most attention, figure it out which ones are the most actionable, and concurrently get the best resources we possibly can so that this committee can give me some marching orders to express to town council a path forward on how to get these things moved farther up the flagpole in terms of priorities.
Can we get a whiteboard for that? Do you have a whiteboard that we could like write some of that stuff out at our working
Next
session?
meeting,
That would help me.
I'll get a
Try to figure out
whiteboard.
something.
I can buy one.
I've got a few. in
And
my
could we
studio.
also come with examples, what other communities have done? So I don't know, do we have to like, if we wanted to revise the code, do we have to like go through our specific code and revise the same language? Or could we just revise the whole thing based on like some other enlightened communities already done? Can we just say, let's change it to this?
Certainly,
Yeah.
having that in the quiver, I think is super part of that. That's an important part of the task force of getting that kind of stuff done.
So that could be good homework, is looking at other codes that have been adopted.
Yeah, so, and
Yeah,
we're
that's what I do.
focusing on energy code. Is that right?
Building.
That's what I'm.
I mean, I'm concerned that we're even there, we're so far in the weeds. I mean, I'm not sure that we should be writing code. We should be recommending that, the code be changed in ways that,
Right. That's what we do.
accomplish these things.
But I think we should follow up
Thank
with
you.
what you want to do right now.
Yeah,
Get that solidified
get
and then
this.
move on to the building.
thank you.
codes.
I agree, because
Yeah.
from
Because
what I'm
that's a
hearing from at
start.
least some on the town council, this may be an opportunity for time that
You
that
want-
recommendation,
Yeah.
right, so that recommendation to me, if we're in a concurrence, should go forth tonight.
Should we get Vicky and
See how Ken feels about it, and Barry.
Yeah,
Terry's.
We don't have Joyce.
nobody has their hands up per se. I do want to point out, Kenny, thanks for everything that you suggested, by the way, was on his goals that he shared in his Google Docs. So you guys, please, everybody read what's in there. Please dig into the stuff. I'm hearing suggestions on finding comps and analogs for different solutions, and I've been doing everything I can to get that stuff into one place. So please dig into that and do your research. So I hate to be
Good.
pedagogic on that, but do your homework. So I don't know how much we want to go beyond 2 hours tonight, you guys.
We don't, but
We
can we
don't.
vote on that proposal?
Yes.
Yeah,
Let's
we
make-
do.
Vote on it.
Dave would like to make a motion.
You're right, I made that motion that,
could you repeat it?
Yeah.
sure,
Second,
that,
right, yeah.
we recommend that the Ridgway Town Council look at incorporating all electric and all electric ready and solar ready requirements into Ridgway building codes.
We admit, look
As
at.
soon- as soon as possible.
Yeah, I don't think look
Let's
at's the right
commit, omit,
term.
look at. We recommend that
Right.
Ridgway.
Yeah,
And with that, I believe that on the tails of that, I believe that we have the ability as a committee to find the best analogs and the best comps to make it most efficient for the town to move forward. With the pros and cons of that, I think that would be, the onus is on us to come up with the most succinct way to hand that to the town.
Do we do that after they say go for it or before we hand it to them?
I think we should take that upon ourselves and do that now. I mean, I'm looking for the best information from this committee as
Well,
as
But if
the,
the town council doesn't want to do that, then we've put a lot of time into.
we'll explain the mechanics of that then.
Yeah, so thank you for the motion. I have thoughts on that. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. We take the collective priorities by way of the motion here, I'll incorporate it into the next draft of the strategic plan, which will be presented to the town council on November 18th, whenever that budget workshop is.
Good.
17th, yeah.
November 18th.
17th.
Whatever that Thursday
Great.
is. I would suspect there's two council members in the room that, a large majority of everyone on council is going to say, this is great. Let's make sure this is memorialized right here and that this carries forward and that it's done. So those are my thoughts on how that gets laid out and how that identifies the work plan, like the near-term work plan. I would suggest in your motion, if this makes sense, because there's three key themes that I've heard here, without getting too granular: education, energy, electric and solar ready.
That's
Okay.
energy.
The motion you made was related to that pretty big undertaking, the Crested Butte-ish type project. But, I also heard further explore modifications to the energy code in a way that the state legislature has mandated. I think that's important. That needs to
Right.
continue. So I would ask that you add that to the motion, that'd be a focus, and this committee can have a part of that. And another piece was education. Your thought about doing a questionnaire, sending that out, and getting that clearinghouse going. I mean, that's not a small undertaking. I think that could be we talk about education all the time. That's something to focus on too.
I agree with you. I appreciate hearing the timetable and the 17th and what y'all are doing, because what I was thinking is with this potential window of opportunity, we would push forward with this all electric or electric ready requirement, solar ready requirement very quickly. And timetable would be, as you say, a little longer to try to get to where Crested Butte is. And we would try to then look at a timetable and recommend what timetable we think makes sense, which would include education and whatnot. But if it makes sense for, to incorporate this on the 17th, because this is not just a short-term plan, this is a long-term plan.
It's long term, and this is just getting a thumbs up for all of these thoughts and ideas, right?
So starting with electric ready and solar ready very soon, while moving toward all electric homes.
Which is an exploration, yeah.
An exploration.
And we'll facilitate that search. Is that I just want to go in the order of the way people had their hands up. Ken, you were next.
Okay, I've got three things. Dave, is electric ready pre-wired or just conduit?
It's pre-wired, I think.
Okay, that's a big deal.
I don't think it is for the roof.
Conduit to the roof, but pre-wired in the house for electric.
That's a good question, though. I'm not totally sure, Ken. So I thought it was pre-wired, but I'm not sure.
Well, it depends on where the panel is and if conduit is enough, because sometimes pulling wire through a conduit won't happen after the walls are closed up. So some of it may have to be pre-wired. I guess we need to, I don't know, that's a funny.
I think,
I can help you with that a little bit. Most solar systems now are high voltage and Romex is sufficient without conduit. For example, on the Space to Create, it's just Romex that's wired to the roof. So
Right.
it is pre-wiring without the need for conduit. So
What
that-
about
needs to be
say,
fully vetted, though.
I'm sorry, Terry, say you've got an EV charger in the garage and the panel's on the other side of the house. You've got to pre-wire that. You can't pull wire.
That's
Oh,
right. That's a 30 amp, 240 volt circuit, which would need appropriate wire size. And
Yeah.
you guys, this is the kind of stuff I want to save for the work session.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I have another,
Kenny, you said that you had two more questions.
Yeah,
Questions, and if they're in the weeds, save them for the work session.
no, thank you for that. Preston left off water conservation in his items that we're concerned about. And I think that's a big one, and we shouldn't leave that off at the right out of the gate here. And the third one is we have a motion on the floor.
Does anybody want to second Dave's motion?
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I think we're all in favor, but can we work on the wording just a little bit? Because I think it's important to put in what Preston was alluding to, that we're talking about, starting soon with electric ready and solar ready homes, and we'll have to, figure out what that means. And Ken, your question is right on, but, then as we move, over the next, timetable with education toward all electric buildings.
And incorporate the state requirements that are coming up into the proposal.
Could I just make?
State and
Bean,
national, yeah.
please, could I just make this one?
So let's just to his motion, we're still discussing that a second, Dana. I want to hold on to it a second. Stay on this topic here. Why don't, we're working on the wording of this. And we don't have the agenda for the next meeting. Let's hash this out.
But I'm hearing that 17 November, we're having a.
I'm talking about like by tomorrow. That's what I'm saying. If you can write some words down, we could. Do you want to restate it and feel like you have it clean?
I think Preston has pretty good. You want to state it for us, Preston?
I think
Your motion.
the motion, the motion would be for to recommend the following focus areas or priorities for fiscal year 2023. Explore mandating all new construction that includes commercial and residential, be all electric ready and solar ready, and potentially even EV ready.
I think that I think it is EV ready. I think that's in all electric, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For all intents and purposes. After there, also recommending a focus on the energy piece as it relates to House Bill 1362 and the state's requirements for municipalities to upgrade their version of the energy code that they're going off of to make sure we meet those requirements. And then focus area of education as it relates to a very large umbrella of education, but going back to the clearinghouse that Angela had mentioned. Yeah, of course, Ken, water conservation should be a focus area and already is largely. JT, you were in a budget retreat all day Saturday. Water conservation, all things water augmentation and upgrading our system is a huge priority for everybody. So,
But if we include that, it dilutes the
Yeah.
energy. thing.
Yeah, that's a broader, that's not part of the motion. That's not part of the motion.
focused on the motion, but I was trying to talk.
Can I add one thing to the motion? The education piece that the town considers giving this board a web page that we can start to build out as an education. I mean, that's like, they can just, we don't need it now, but they need to start thinking about it because
we
that's
need it
gonna
now.
be.
We need it yesterday.
I think that's, I'd like to separate that out though, right?
Yep.
We should, that's a second motion, requesting to the town council to propose to the town that they dedicate the resources by staff to help us develop a website that's exclusive to the Sustainability Advisory.
Right.
So just to separate that out, I wanted to make sure we stayed on Dave's. all the notes, the components of the educational component of it, and the due diligence we need to do and research. That'll be part of that, of Dave's motion.
Good, thank you.
All right. With that, I've made a bunch of notes as well. I will draft some stuff so we know we have this well ahead of time going into the setting for the agenda for the next one. Dana, you wanted to go to the next question?
Okay, so all I want to say, what I've been trying to say the whole time is that there's plenty of articles on how much money you will save doing the solar ready and electric ready down the tubes. And
Bring
I
those,
am more
bring
than
those, bring
willing-
those to the work session.
I'm more than willing to research that and bring it
Dana,
for
and
public consumption, okay? Because saying that solar's expensive, it's
Dana,
gonna turn people off.
and I'm just for the practical terms,
Yeah.
also do me a favor and dig into the Google Drive, because a lot of that stuff is what I've been researching and it's in there as well.
Okay,
And so for the work session, it's a different part of the mechanics of how we organize these meetings. That's the kind of stuff that we will get into the weeds on and bring that best information and distill it down and vet it and I will use that in my
Bless
marching
you.
orders going to the council. We hear you on it, just trying to stay topic by topic.
well, all I'm saying is I'm gonna bring that to
So-
the table next time.
Bring that to the table as part of the work session
Motion
under that
on the
umbrella.
floor, and there's a second, can we vote?
Did the seconder
We
accept the modification to the motion?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Did, okay.
Yes.
So now we need a roll call vote, so I'll just go ahead. Angela,
Yes,
Vicky,
Yes,
Joyce is not on, Dana,
Yes,
Dave,
Yeah,
Ken,
Yes,
ET.
Yes,
does
All
it
right.
pass?
we'll nail down the language on that, and that'll give us the priorities to what to work on research wise. And everybody compost all of the best research you could possibly do, educate yourselves, and bring that to the table as part of this next meeting. And we'll try not to add too much more into that meeting so we can really come up with some practical stuff.
can we discuss our tour of the treatment plant and approve the minutes?
Is that everything on?
can,
I think we voted on it. It
Yes.
passed.
All right, so moving on. Okay.
can we also next meeting? Because I'm concerned that we're in the weeds so much. Can
Totally.
we talk about a timetable?
Yes.
So can we look at, all right, what is the state mandating and by when? And what do we think is town is reasonable? And then we can fill in the education and all that stuff and just try to come up with a general, here's how we might move forward.
All right, yes, noted. Angela, to your point.
Molecule air.
Wow. Moving on to item number 3 then, just to get us done here by 7 PM in a minute. As far as the Ridgway water treatment plan, just to give you some context, I had originally broached the subject, not specifically about the water treatment plant, but the whole water system, from Lako down the ditches above. Obviously, the snow's flying and it's not timely for that. There's some other logistical stuff to deal with in terms of landowners and visiting that stuff. So given the timeline of that, table that to the spring. So what is available to us very easily is an opportunity to go visit the water treatment plant as a means to have all of us develop some muscle memory on understanding what it is we need to learn about. So
If you want to, Dave's been up there like 1,000 times. but-
Twice, and I love it, and go again.
alrighty,
It's fun up there.
here, I guess the most,
I know the codes to the
How-
gates too. They've got new gates now.
so for practical purposes, how many people in this group would be interested in going on a tour of the wastewater treatment plant?
Wait, why talk?
I'm sorry, the water treatment plant.
Will there be like a guide that is an
Yes.
employee
It'll
that's
be-
going
It'll
to,
be
okay,
me and Crystal Lane.
perfect.
So Vicky, Ken, would you be interested?
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Oh, cute, Ken.
That myself, yes, everybody else. Okay, so unanimous. I know Joyce is interested. And she's departed from here, but okay, so let's come up with a date and I'll send out maybe a doodle poll to see what works well with Chris.
Doodle poll, great.
So, all right, moving on to the next item then, approval of the minutes. Anybody want to make a motion for the minutes from October 5th meeting?
I motion to approve the minutes from the October 15th meeting.
5th.
Fifth.
I second that.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Should I abstain since I wasn't here?
Yes.
Yes. And with that, folks, I will follow up. And again, my pedagogic and my patronizing impulses here as your fearless Jewish mother suggest that everybody do their homework on all the topics they're interested in. Make sure you put them in the instead of sending specific articles to all of us, put that stuff into the Google Drive. And if you want to alert us to that and the things that you're interested in, give us.
I just can't do that Google Drive thing. I'm sorry. I have to send
Then-
emails. I'm sorry.
Uh,
Just 75 years old and I'm retarded.
Then let me finish so we can get out of here. Anyway, we need to do our homework. I would like, even if I have to come over and hold your hand to show you what we're doing, it'll prevent redundancy.
Well, I can get in and read things, but I
Okay.
can't send it. I can't put them in.
All right, well, I'll help you with that. But anyway, with that all said, you guys, thanks for all the passion, the interest, and the wide ranging research everybody's done. With that, I will adjourn the Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022 meeting of the Ridgway Sustainability Advisory Board. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
So-
Night. Thanks, everybody.
So can I build a